What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Today, I was going to do another episode of Making Sense of the End Times. My intention was to cover Joel chapter 3, verses 1 to 2, which potentially has within it the ability to be the shortest lesson I've ever done. It's just 2 verses of scripture. And before I sit down to do all this, to film it, I'm texted by a good friend of mine, a Catholic Zionist. Yeah, they exist. And she writes me a text wishing me a happy Purim, and I'm amazed. Woe and behold, I forget that today is the holiday of Purim from the book of Esther. Now, for the 24 years that I lived in Israel, it would be impossible for me to forget because the Jewish holidays are Israel's national holidays. So even if you don't observe them, you're aware of these holidays. Just like if you're not a Sabbath observer in Israel, you are aware it's a Sabbath. It's the national day off in Israel. Almost everything in Jerusalem is closed on the Sabbath, whether we like it or not. If you don't observe the Jewish dietary laws, whether you like it or not, you sort of are forced to conform to them, especially in Jerusalem, where very few supermarkets or restaurants cater to non-kosher preferences. So, if I had been living in Israel, I would have been fully aware that today is Purim, but until I got this text from my good Catholic friend, I forgot that today is Purim, and I decided that I'm going to cast aside Joel chapter 3 today and give a short message on Purim, for it would be totally remiss of me to miss the opportunity, especially since the specter of genocidal antisemitism is alive and well today. And therefore, Purim, which is really in practice nothing more than Halloween in Israel without going door to door for candy. Nonetheless, this holiday, Purim, is, in my opinion, one of the most important holidays on the Jewish calendar, even though it's not treated as what's known as a high holiday after the fashion of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, or Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, or Sukkot, which most of you know by the name the Feast of Tabernacles. This is because the truth that Purim is communicating is just as relevant today as it was on that first Purim nearly 2,500 years ago. Wow, 2,500 years ago. It's a long time. Now, what is that truth? Well, that truth is that since our inception as a people 4,000 years ago, we have had a satanic bullseye on our backs. Every generation or so, an enemy arises who seeks the total annihilation or eradication of the Jewish people. The Pharaoh of the Exodus story, Haman, the Persian viceroy, at the center of this story of Purim. The Emperor Hadrian, Catholic Spain's Inquisition, Hitler, who, by the way, was provided by much material to be quoted by Protestantism's founder, Martin Luther, and today's Islamic Republic of Iran, together with hundreds of millions of other Muslims. Each of these instances were and remain genocidal in intent. This is what sets the hatred of Jews apart from every other hatred. It is always, in capital letters, genocidal in intent. Our enemies want to annihilate us down to the last Jewish individual. Now, woe, and I mean woe, W-O-E, woe to those Christians, both Catholic and Protestant, who played their part in the above movements. Church history, unfortunately, is full of them. Now, I would not want to stand before Jesus to be asked, and I'm saying this to quote, "Why in my name did you make my name synonymous with hatred for the Jewish people? Why did you push my people even further away from me?" Throughout my years of guiding thousands of Christians in Israel, I've always been asked, "Steve, why don't the Jews believe in Jesus?" Now, of course, the answer to that is multifold. But one of those answers, and I would say one of the major answers to that question, is unfortunately Christian, and I say this in quotes, Christian antisemitism didn't cause the Jews to envy, per Romans chapter 11, verse 11. Another question, Steve, why the satanic bullseye painted on the Jewish people for the past 4,000 years? Well, the answer's pretty simple and biblical, because the Bible clearly and repeatedly states that the sovereign of the universe set the Jewish nation apart as his chosen nation. Through Yahweh's intervention in Jewish history, and this has been the theme of our past several studies of Ezekiel, through Yahweh's intervention in Jewish history on the shores of the Red Sea, through his settling us in Canaan, through his scattering us to the four winds of the world in judgment, through his regathering us from those four winds of the world back to Israel in our own day, Yahweh is trying to direct the attention of the world, Jew and Gentile, to who he is. He is the God of the Bible. Hundreds of passages of scripture are being fulfilled in our own day. But sadly, sinful humanity, Jew and Gentile, refuse to see it. Even more disgusting to me are those Christian denominations that still hold on to replacement theology, despite the past 100 years of events mocking that theology nearly every day. Genocide to Jews, per Pharaoh, Haman, Hitler, and the Ayatollah Khamenei, or simply write them out of the unfolding story prophesied throughout the Bible per replacement theology Christianity, and you make God look like a liar. Yes, history does repeat itself. And unfortunately for us, the Jews, the genocidal hatred of the Jews is back. From the Islamic Republic of Iran to the grifters on X with millions of followers. But I got good news. Yahweh will not let them have the final say. After all, he is not a liar. He will fulfill in the Jewish nation and the world at large everything that he has promised to fulfill. Now, as for you, my precious grafted in Christians, per Romans chapter 11, verses 11 through 31, who do know Yahweh, love the Jewish people because he does, pray for our deliverance from our genocidal nemesis, I'm incredibly grateful for each and every one of you. Truly, you are our best friends on the planet, but unfortunately, you are sadly a footnote in the vastness of church history. Well, folks, again, it would have been remiss of me to let this Purim or the lesson it has to teach us pass without notice. As for Joel chapter 3, verses 1 and 2, I'll cover that hopefully in my next episode. Hopefully in the beginning of next week, Monday, Tuesday. Until then, I wish you the happiest of weekends. And though you may not be Jewish, I wish you the happiest of Purims, because in this story, those of you who know the Lord and know his truth concerning Israel, well, you're one of the good guys or an assembly of good guys in this unfolding story of Israel. With that said, I bid you adieu and wish you well until the next episode. This is Steve the Tour Guide signing off. Bye-bye.